But yeah, so I mean, you just told me your age. I was gonna close this out just asking your age, and then also asking this one question. One thing that I've noticed, not just for myself, but from other people as well, who go on this journey of personal finance and handling their money and investing, is I like to talk more about the mental side of things more than just the actual mechanics, because I feel like it's a
Sure.
whole lot less um, that you do with just like, oh, I play with this money and all this other stuff, but it's a lot more about the mentality of when you handle money, and that basically takes more premise to ensure that you do well. So one question that I have for a lot of young folks, especially now that we're in the age of social media, is do you ever feel behind as you're going on this journey of wealth building, of just trying to get to this position of being financially well off in the future? Or do you just kind of like, I don't care about anybody, I'm always focused on me? Or do you ever like compare yourself to other people, like, yo, what am I doing that those people are not doing? Or what are those people doing that I'm not doing to ensure that I get to where they are right now?
Mm. Yeah. I like to think I have sort of like an internal scorecard, and I'm not someone that's trying to compare myself to other people. But I'd be lying if I said I don't occasionally compare myself to other people. So yeah, I mean, if there's people that are far more successful than me, and I would preface that by saying far more successful than me in the right ways.
Yeah.
So, the likes of, the Buffetts and Mungers and
Mm-hmm.
Fabris and Guy Spears of the world, those people, they're all people that I take a lot of inspiration from, because they've had this phenomenal long-term compounding type journey.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go to Las Vegas and suddenly become a millionaire. Like if someone does that, there's no point, first of all, comparing yourself to that,
Yeah.
and you can't learn anything from that. And
That's facts.
there's a bit of survivorship bias in there too, because there's far more people that have gone to Las Vegas and lost $1 million, right? So, um,
Thank you. People don't want to listen to me when I say it. Thank you. Anyway.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I can compare myself to other people occasionally, but I'm on my own sort of journey, and I don't really ever feel behind. Maybe that's just because I understand compound interest, or I don't quite know. Relatively small sums can grow into very large sums if you give it a long enough runway. So time's on your side with this stuff.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. I literally I know even me myself sometimes I'm be totally honest, like sometimes because I'm the type of person that's always like, I sit at home and I'm trying to think like, okay, what's the next move I need to make, what's the next thing I need to do, and I end up sometimes questioning myself, like, am I doing the right things, am I on the right path, am I moving in
Yeah.
the right direction? But like you said, it's my sister told me something or gave me a Bible verse, and it was like, focus on the road ahead rather than looking everywhere else, and rather focus on the path that you're paving for yourself, and your journey is going to look different, and it's going to look not
Yeah.
like what everybody else's journey is. And sometimes you might need to tread a new path that other people actually follow behind you. Like your YouTube page has tread a new path for me to be able to follow behind you, learning from some of the things that you're learning from. So definitely, I agree with that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that, and I might just tell a quick story as well. So this is one that I think probably should be told more when it comes to these kinds of things, because I think a lot of people are just frankly in a hurry to become wealthy, or however people want to define it for themselves. Um, and it's interesting because if you look back at the history of Buffett and Munger, and the very early days of Berkshire Hathaway, there was actually a third person. So it was not just Buffett and Munger. It was actually Buffett, Munger, and a guy called Rick Guerin, who, if anyone's ever looked at the appendices of The Intelligent Investor, which is a very niche place to look, but if you look in there, you'll see this speech that Warren Buffett did called The Super Investors of Graham and Doddsville, which has basically investment track records for a range of value investors. And Rick Guerin has actually the best performance track record of any investor in that group. So
Wow.
I think it was somewhere in the mid 30% a year range over about 15 years that
Wow.
he'd compounded money at. And one of the things that Buffett and Munger always say is they knew that they were going to be very wealthy over a long period of time. They spent a lot less than they earned. They were pretty reasonable investors, they thought, which turned out to be very true. So if they run that compound engine long enough, then they're going to be wealthy. And they really weren't in a hurry to get there. But Rick Guerin was in a hurry. So he had basically the same investment philosophy as Buffett and Munger, but with one key difference, which was the fact that he borrowed money, he took out margin loans to invest, which, as he was performing very, very well, it meant his annual returns were, his annual returns were more volatile, but throughout however long that track record was, I think it was about 15 years, he had a very good return because he borrowed some money and that, juiced up his return on equity. But then there was a massive stock market crash in the early 1970s, and Rick Guerin basically went to zero. So, it doesn't matter how big a net worth you get to, any number multiplied by zero is zero, right? So if you blow up at some point, you're back to the start. And and when Rick Guerin got these margin calls, he was forced to sell his Berkshire Hathaway stock. He owned Berkshire at that time, and he was actually selling a lot of his Berkshire stock to Buffett at $40 per share. Now, if anyone knows the Berkshire Hathaway stock price today of like $400,000 a share, you'll know that selling Berkshire at 40 is probably not a particularly good thing to do. So, don't be in a hurry. If you've even got a slight advantage over the average person in terms of how you approach personal finance or investment, you can't help but do well over an extended period of time. So that's just a cautionary tale for the people listening in.
That's a good story. That's just, man, 40. Oh my gosh. I'm just thinking crazy. Like, oh man, like, don't be a Rick Byrne. We need to make that like a slogan. We need to start talking more and just making that like a slogan for everybody. Don't be a Rick Byrne. Go learn about this guy and know why every one of us should just slow down. Like, we're in this, we're in a microsecond society. Everything we want is right at our fingertips. DoorDash, Spotify, Google, everything is right at our fingertips. We can get food within the next 5 minutes if we want it. And so, definitely like slow down. There's some things that just don't come at the snap of a finger.
And Rick Guerin was a good enough investor to recover from that and be wealthy again beyond his wildest dreams after that going to zero. But he could have been a billionaire, right? And he didn't quite get there. Unfortunately, he passed away. I think it was last year. He was still a very close friend of Charlie Munger's and was quite heavily involved with the Daily Journal Corporation, I think, up until his last days. So but really interesting guy, like incredibly intelligent by all accounts. But he was in a hurry, so he did blow up at one point there.
Just remember the story of the tortoise and the hare. Sometimes slow and steady is the way to go. And you don't have, somebody said
Absolutely.
don't. Oh yeah, I think it was Buffett who said you don't need to be, you don't need to have a high IQ to be able to invest and make money investing. And Peter Lynch says it takes more of your stomach than it does your brain in investing. So I definitely agree with that of just like, slow down, everybody, slow down. Just take it a little bit longer and you'll be good. Yeah. So
and Buffett making 20% a year is I wouldn't call that slow either. that's pretty quick compounding, but people want a 10x at a year, so.
Yeah, I know, right? Like nowadays when I'm like, if you talk about, you can get like 7 to 8% in the stock market, and that's pretty good. People are like, what? 7 to 8%? Why am I going to do that? It's like the whole idea of risk. When I was setting up my 401k, the only thing I knew like risk factor was like risky is stocks. Stocks are risky and bonds are a safer asset. Now everybody's like, stocks are not risky. Like those are stocks. I want to go into like meme stock and meme coins and meme stocks and all of this other stuff. And it's just like, well, when you go to zero, then we'll be here. We'll be here waiting on you. So yeah, it's just an interesting time to be alive, I guess. It's just what they say, youth is wasted on the young because we ain't got no wisdom to think through our decision making. So definitely see that played out very much on social and everywhere else. So
or there's that quote that there's old investors and there's bold investors, but there's no old bold investors.
I like it. And I was listening to a podcast and they said something. They were asking everybody. They were in Boca Raton, which is like a famous retirement place in Florida, and they were asking each person like, "Oh, what was your return in the stock market? What was your return in the stock market?" And everybody was like saying, "Yeah, I got this, I got this." And then they asked like another guy, and the guy said, "Who cares what my return is? I'm in Boca. I don't have to worry about anything anymore." And so that was really like, yeah, like, what does it matter? Like, you will get to that, just like you said, it comes down to back to the simple basic: live on less than you make, invest and save the rest. And as long as you do that in the long run, you will always do well. That's just how it works. Compounding is such a powerful thing.
I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of the Rambling Mind podcast. If you want more of the Rambling Mind podcast, or if you want to listen to the whole episode that you just heard, go check it out on any podcast listening platform, whether that be Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Breaker, Stitcher. I could go on, but you guys already know which podcast you love to use to listen to. So go check it out. Link down in the description as well. I'm going to catch y'all later. Peace.